Thank you so much, all of you, for being here and participating in a large number for one of the first events for APPI. When I am asked to cover what are the recent advances in pathology, you know there are many advances in different specialties, but I have chosen the tests which are very common and you see them day-to-day practice, and lot of it will have lot of clinical implications. So we have chosen purposefully those tests which are not very esoteric, which normal labs don't do, but some tests which you come across every single day of your practice and mean a lot to you as well as to the patient and the clinician. Now, when we talk about semen analysis, all of us know that semen analysis in 2010, there are new WHO guidelines, and these have changed over the years in terms of what is the sperm count in millions per ml to number of morphological abnormalities. Now, when we talk about semen, it's a very interesting thing that every second in human body, about 1500 sperms are produced. Every day, an average man in the reproductive age group would produce about 100 million sperms. And in his lifetime, a human being would produce close to 525 billion sperms. And if you compare this with a woman, in a reproductive age, a woman would produce about 500 to 600 eggs in the entire life. So a capacity of human being to produce sperm is unparalleled. Now, these are the WHO guidelines. Now, I will just go here and explain to you. If you look at can you go back to the table? Yes. See what has changed. Again, I want the table to be kept. I am pasting it, okay. I thought this was a pointer, my mistake. Where is the pointer here? Okay. Sorry. So if you look what has happened to these guidelines from 87 to 2010, the volume which was about 2 ml is now considered, this is not 15, it is 1.5 ml. I mean, human beings have not become bulls or chimpanzees. The only animal which will produce this type of volume essentially is a chimpanzee, where average semen volume is about 8 cc, and a gorilla who, unlike male, instead of 1.5 ml, a gorilla will have a semen volume of only 1 cc. So this is just incidental. So here it should be 1.5. The sperm concentration has changed from 20 to 15. Total sperm count not major change. Motility criteria reduced. Normal forms from 50% now reduced to 4%. So you are saying that anything up to 96% morphologically abnormal sperms are considered within normal limits, and small change in vitality. As you would see, all the parameters have been essentially reduced from what they were. So you would wonder whether there is genuine reduction in human sperm count, or it is the methodology of examining sperms which have changed, and unfortunately the answer is both. It's because actual reduction in sperm numbers because of the insecticides, because of the environmental pollution which has happened in past 50 years, and it's also because of stricter scoring of morphology. Now, how we know this? There was a study in which a 1960-1970 pap stain slides of human spermatozoa were evaluated by today's morphological criteria. So these were old slides, but evaluated as per modern criteria, and we found out that the morphological abnormalities have increased by 8%. This is a paper published in Human Reproduction and Fertility Sterility. So a human being's sperm count is essentially getting challenged due to various environmental factors and exposure to hazardous chemicals. So now the new limits are all lowered. The second reason for this change is because Earlier, the semen count averages were done from young, healthy volunteers, and an average graph of semen count was plotted, and the mean was considered, and the deviation from mean was considered a normal range. Now, WHO in 2010, what it has done? What is the definition of infertility? A definition of infertility is 1 year of unprotected coitus doesn't result in pregnancy. Okay, so what they have done, that only people who conceived in the past 1 year were included in the reference group, and these were 4,500 couples from 14 countries. So unlike young healthy men, people who gave rise to pregnancy, the male partners in the past 1 year were part of study, and that has also resulted in this change. Now, unfortunately, these 2010 guidelines are not followed very well. World over, if you see, only 32% of the andrology labs will be following these guidelines. In India, I think even less so. Because if I look at lab reports, I hardly see a lab report which mentions that anything more than 4% abnormal is normal. Most of them still mention 50%, 30%, some other cutoffs. So this is important. Now, when we are talking about semen, semen analysis is only 60% accurate in predicting fertility. It just tells you count and motility and the ability of sperm to travel through the cervical mucus after the coitus, reach the fallopian tube and result in fertilization is not told by sperm count. So the fertilizing ability of the sperm cannot be judged by semen test, and that's why it's only 60% accurate in predicting the fertility. If you ask me what is the easiest test for fertilizing ability, if you ask the patient history and patient tells you there was a history of abortion or an ectopic pregnancy, that's a natural history of a proven fertilizing capability of that sperm. If patient is undergoing an IVF cycle and in a petri dish the fertilization has occurred, it's a proven test. Otherwise, we are relying on indirect ways to evaluate the fertilizing ability of the sperm. In first year of marriage, this pregnancy occurrence is independent of the semen quality. Duration of infertility is very important. If I ask you a question that somebody came to you with a count of 50 million, 70% motility, unprotected coitus for 5 years, no pregnancy, vis-a-vis a person with a count of 8 million, 20% motility, married for 6 months. Whose chances of fathering is better? The answer is the second patient with a lower sperm count. A person with a count which was absolutely normal with excellent motility had an unprotected coitus for a period of 5 years, not resulting in pregnancy, means there is something defective in the sperm which is not picked up in the semen count and other tests. So there is a problem with the fertilizing ability of the sperm. So the duration of infertility itself means this patient should be much more aggressively treated than a patient who has a 10 million or 8 million count with 20% motility but married for 6 months. So duration of infertility itself has lot of prognostic significance. Also, a man with a positive PCT, that means after intercourse, if you do an examination of cervical mucus and you find a live spermatozoa in good numbers, have good chance of becoming a father irrespective of their semen counts. Because only morphologically normal sperms can cross the endocervical mucus barrier and can go and result in fertilization. Next slide. Now this, most of you know what is this. I just wanted to concentrate on what is the difference between azoospermia and aspermia. Both are different. When you say azoospermia, this is absence of sperms in semen, but there is a semen. So there is a semen volume, but there are no sperm. When you say aspermia, there is no ejaculate or few drops of ejaculate, essentially urethral glands and prostatic secretions, but no contribution coming from the seminal vesicle. And we will see why it is important. Next slide. These are different patterns of motility as per the WHO criteria and the previous MacLeod grade. Now we have 4 criteria. D is immotile, A is rapid progressive, B is sluggish, C is non-progressive. A plus B is the one which is most important for fertilization, and as per the current guidelines that should be 39%. Semen counts, I will not go into details. You can use either a Mechler chamber. We will come back to other cells in Siemens. Now, other cells in Siemens, can you go back? Okay, you are unable to go back? Okay, here, why I wanted to talk, we see time and again many reports where it's mentioned as lot of pus cells in the semen. These are not pus cells, but these are spermatids which are normally present in semen. Normally, the other cell concentration should be less than 5 million per ml, and the WBC concentration is less than 1 million. Now, 1 million appears a large number, but this is an uncentrifuged sample, and if you see 1 to 2 pus cells per hypor field, that would exceed the criteria of 1 million per ml. So, in semen, it is not common to see 1 to 2 pus cells per hypor field, because mentally you are comparing with a urine sample which is 10 cc centrifuge deposit. Here you are seeing a drop of uncentrifuged semen. Why it is important? Because WBCs produce what we call as reactive oxygen species or free radicals, which are about 100 times more than any other cell in the semen. And they are the ones which are mostly causing low motility of the sperms. So we take it very seriously, and it's important to differentiate between the two. Then we go to sperm morphology. It's dependent on various technical factors, including the type of staining. Now, we also have something called as multiple anomaly index. So, not only morphology is important, but number of abnormalities per sperm are very important. Sperm, as you know, has a head, midpiece, and a tail, and a cytoplasmic neck. So, one sperm can maximum have 4 anomalies. But if the multiple anomaly index is more than 1.6, then you hardly have a chance of any pregnancy. That's why how many anomalies per sperm is also important as much as the total number of anomalies in a semen sample. This is now called by WHO as teratoazoospermia index. Now, this strict Tigerberg criteria are the ones which we are using now, and you will see why they are important. Now, when you score morphologically by strict criteria, the pregnancy rates drop very significantly low if the morphologically normal sperms were less than 14%. That's why the earlier WHO manual till 2000 had a cutoff of 14% based on this data. The new manual says that 4% is also acceptable, but as I told you, most of the andrology labs still find it very difficult to accept the new 2010 guidelines for morphology. Now, this I purposely wanted to show you